Today we're visiting the excellent National Museum of Wales. It's in the centre of Cardiff, and really if you like museums this is a must visit if you're in Cardiff. They don't allow video inside, but they did tell me no problem taking photos, so we're going to do a few photos. I'm going to try and give you a feel for the museum, which I'd say excellent ground floor covering the natural world, dinosaurs, fossils, stones, minerals. And on the first floor, a lovely art gallery, along with a small but very well curated collection of pottery. So we're starting off in the ground floor. There's this beautiful atrium in the centre with wings off to the side. There's a cafe and shop on one side, there's entry to the exhibitions on the other, and there's beautiful skylight I really liked, but very striking architecture. Actually within the atrium you start with the new Welsh dinosaur, and they have portions of a new dinosaur that was discovered in Wales, which is quite striking. It's small pieces, gives you a good idea of how when paleontologists tell you they've discovered a new dinosaur, they've often found 10 bones in a pile of stone. And these are the 4 pieces, what we have of that dinosaur. But from that, they're able to identify that it's a new species, and they've got enough that they can frame it, reconstruct it, and give an idea. Then we head into the first gallery of a natural world. There's a beautiful reconstruction of a rock face with stuffed birds and birds flying above you, a great basking shark, which is one of the most commonly shown images of the museum. It's actually the one I used on the thumbnail for this. It strikes the scale of it. It's very impressive. In this section it's quite harsh light but very strong and very professionally lit. There's some natural elements, some plants from Wales that have been beautifully displayed. And these galleries contain a series of animals that you can find in and around Wales. Here's a mollusk. I must say I wasn't completely clear from the write-up on this, but it's a very large, the biggest mollusk, and it's been sliced through, and there's growth wings like on a tree so they can date just how old it is. At the end of that section there's the claw learning space with a lot of stuffed animals and skeletons of different types of monkey and different shells. Beautiful collection of shells here. Very good explanation of the mollusks and how the different types of shell are related to each other and the benefits. Beautiful collection of fir cones from around the world. I've seen one like the one on the right, the big one. I've never seen one as big as the one at the back, which only opens up during fire. And there's a reconstruction of a pine forest, which is quite nicely done. It almost looks alive. A lot of stuffed birds, some taxidermists being kept very busy by this museum. There's badgers and a fox, faux snow, and some trees and birds. It gives you a very good feeling for the different ecosystems of Wales and the types of creatures that live there. And it's displayed in a very striking and tasteful way, so I think very popular with the visitors. And also I got accosted by some of the staff here who are very chatty, telling me about the best way to go around the museum. I'd say stood out actually, the staff as very helpful. Quite often they're sort of silent observers, but maybe because it was a bit quiet on a weekday, it was quite noticeable how personable they were. And beautiful, this bird of prey. Photo really doesn't do it justice. Then into a room about the sea with a lot of shells, crayfish and lobsters, crabs, this beautiful jellyfish up in the air there, this reconstructed different fish, and there's a manatee skeleton in the centre which is definitely the centerpiece to the room, very striking. If you ever see one, they kind of look like a whale, cow, and they're very cow-like in their behaviour. And this very striking jellyfish, there were several interesting jellyfish specimens. A lot of these are reconstructed, not taxidermied, but very well done. It actually looked quite alive, more than a lot of taxidermied one might. Wide selection of sea creatures with good explanation in English and Welsh which each one is, so you can understand exactly what you're looking at and how they relate to each other, and a good attempt to show them in terms of their family, their phylum, so you can actually understand how they are related to each other in terms of characteristics. A very crisp museum, very clean. This huge millipede, this is a reconstruction of a millipede that would live in the swamps of ancient times. There's a very similar one in the Sedgwick Museum, but I think this one somehow looked a bit more lifelike. And then a lot of fossils of prehistoric plants, an explanation of how they differed from current ones and how they're very much similar to current plants, the different types, explanation of the different fossils and prehistoric finds from around mainly South Wales, but there are some international specimens as well. And then into another room of stuffed animals with a beautiful collection of everything from a leopard to the biggest coconut you can see in the back there, to different birds of prey and fossilized cross-section of a tree. Very well displayed, a lot of the material, and it's carefully chosen, you feel. It's a very clean, crisp, modern museum. Doesn't feel like everything's just piled in. This beautiful room full of geode in the centre and this lovely crystal. Really good example of crystalline structure of rock, and very large. It's kind of the size of a small suitcase, big suitcase. And then a large selection of different minerals and rocks that you can find in Wales. It gives a very good explanation, examples of them all, and just very beautiful examples. It's a very well curated collection. Digestible, not as overwhelming as some. I know I enjoyed the Sedgwick Museum and the Natural History Museum's Earth Galleries, but they're probably a bit much if you're not into geology, whereas really this room had a striking collection of very good examples, all quite decent sized and at the same time not too many of them. There's a lovely video in this room that plays and gives an explanation of the Big Bang and the universe. I don't think you're going to learn anything new from it, but it sets it up nicely for the meteorites and the section covering the universe and the wild earth. And there's a very large meteorite that was discovered. And there's different rocks from the moon and examples of different meteorites that have been found. And you can see the quite different structure in the stones. So definitely good section there. I found it very interesting. And then into some more explanations of a dynamic Earth. Very much if you're studying GCSE or A-level physical geography, this is an interesting gallery, very good collection of real stones and rocks and fossils, along with things like the trilobite there, which has been nicely recreated. Looks like a real fossil. Maybe I'm doing disjustice, and it is. And then it's good explanation of volcanology, different types of volcanoes, and different periods of the Earth's evolution. So You have about the Silurian swamps. So here we are, Silurian swamps. So this was the shallow seas, and very good recreation of the different creatures there, where you can see almost like modern day corals, and some tropical seas you might see creatures a bit like that. Remember, it's a tropical forest with different bugs and lizards and early life forms. I'd say they all look a little bit creepy crawly and a little bit exotic. Some beautiful examples of ferns and plants, and there's quite a good explanation of how ferns have actually changed. So although modern ferns look very much like the ferns that you see in fossils, they've actually changed structurally. Now, you can't be in South Wales and looking at geology without thinking about coal. There's a good section with different types of coal and examples of coal, mainly from around this area, but the south of Wales was very heavy coal fields. Then some really good fossils of dinosaurs, along with some model recreations of smaller ones. So got those there. And that the crocodile, it's not a modern day crocodile, it's actually a recreation of a real species of crocodilian which lived in Wales many years ago when it was a bit warmer and drier than it is today. But very striking exhibit that I'd say the photos don't really do justice to. This whole section, some beautifully displayed fossils and models of dinosaurs. Kids loved it, I could tell you. There was only a few there that day, but they were super excited to see the dinosaur section. Didn't see many of them on the first floor. Then lovely example of a real dinosaur there, very dynamically displayed, along with that leg bone. That's the leg bone of a sauropod. You see the duck bill on this one, which is quite striking. Good example. I think National History Museum in London doesn't have a duck-billed dinosaur. And then different explanations of vertebrae and pieces of the bones gives an idea of scale and type and size, along with an interesting reconstruction of a Dracaraptor hanigani, which is a 200 million year old Welsh dinosaur, along with instantly recognisable and very large ammonite. It's about 1.5 foot across. Then a T-Rex skull, everyone's favourite dinosaur. Can't have a natural history museum without a T-Rex head. And beautiful cabinet of fish, particularly the one on the left, reminded me of the modern day anglerfish and a really ugly sucker. And beautiful detailing on the scales on these fish. They're some of the best examples of fish skeletons fossilised that I've seen in a very long time. And a plesiosaur up above. There are several interesting sea fossils here. Beautiful reconstruction, idea of what a trilobite might well have looked like. A bit like a nautilus of today would probably be the closest living relative you'd see. And then various scary sea dinosaurs. I don't think you'd want to come across this beast. And here it doesn't, very poorly lit, so it doesn't really do it justice, but it's a rock with just piles and piles of trilobites. Really beautiful fossil. And then these reconstructed mammoths, you can see them through kind of a cave mouth, and then as you turn the corner you see them more head on, and really beautiful reconstruction. Doesn't look like a model, even though obviously effectively it's a full-size model. Mammoth in the background and an Irish elk in the front. Very good example of an Irish elk. They weren't actually only in Ireland, but they were first found there, so they're given the name Irish elk. A very large deer, almost like the mammoth sloth. just particularly large scale. Then explanation of some early tools. Now we're heading upstairs. Beautiful bit of decoration here with the painting worked into the stairs, working you up these classical staircase to the display area above the main hall, the atrium, and there's rows of glass cabinets with porcelain and some very good examples of European porcelain. And you can walk all the way around the atrium on the balcony here with a handful of very tasteful display cabinets with good examples of modern and 18th and 19th century pottery. An intriguing pottery sculpture here. It's about 6 foot high, standing at the base of a really beautiful circular staircase. Reminds me very much of the one in Somerset House in London, with a very striking window. Then back to the atrium, you have the domed roof with glass making it quite naturally light inside. We'll head into the main art galleries on the first floor. Here's the Jenkins vase. It actually isn't a modern stone carved vase, even though it looks like a very grand vase from some lord's garden. It's actually a Roman altar, which has then been amended with the addition of a base and a cap so that it looks like an ancient vase. But it's actually a combination of ancient Roman religion and modern aesthetic for classicism. Some lovely little Renaissance art here. Madonna with child. And I do like the wallpaper. It reminds me very much here with the El Greco painting, instantly recognisable as El Greco. The wallpaper reminds me a lot of 19th century museums, where they moved away from cramming the walls with paintings, but it was still a very grandiose experience viewing art. And the Dutch masters here, it's quite a good collection of Dutch masters. Some Asian works here. I particularly liked the water buffalo. It's a very striking creature with, we go closer up, you can see the tone in the stone is just beautiful. And hidden away in a corner, should be on full display, is a really good Lowry. It's a great example of Lowry, and if you know, it's matchstick men and matchstick women, very striking. Excellent Rodin sculpture in the centre of the room. If you like Rodin, you should definitely go to the Rodin collection in Paris, where they have a whole house and gardens full of his most famous works like the Finca. Some striking modern art here, a modern vase on a rock in the centre of the room, some very colourful and good examples of 20th century art. I quite liked this wooden sculpture. It has a very living feel to it, and it's very much in keeping with the room. And also this piece of carved wood I thought was gorgeous. It has a very complicated curving shape as you go around it, and it's beautifully put together. Along with, I liked this one, reminded me of an old Celtic cross, even though it's not a cross, but ironwork in the middle, along with a lot of interesting paintings. I'd say not a huge number. You can see Renoir in the background there. Very beautiful collection of good quality art, where it's more about quality than quantity, which is to many people's taste. Lovely Degas sculpture there. If you like Degas and Renoir, Monet, you should go to the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. They have rooms full of paintings like these, with probably 30 per artist. But good examples here. I mean, you can instantly recognise that's Venice. So we're finished with the museum now. Hope you enjoyed our visit to the National Museum. and I would definitely recommend a visit. Very good, solid museum. Particularly, I enjoyed the natural history section. It's some of the best taxidermy I've seen in terms of display, reminding me a bit of the Potteries Museum in Stoke-on-Trent, or the Birmingham City Museum has a section, but I think this is a bit better displayed, or certainly the last time I was there. So definitely worth a visit. Please do subscribe and come back for a Unbound History on Saturday, and on Monday another museum.